Hey Keela Cubs, Mrs. Hoffer here for today's English language knowledge activity. Friends, after today's lesson, you will know characteristics of families, you will understand the tier 2 word advantages and the tier 3 word reign, and you will be able to recall facts about kings and queens. Cuba Cubs, can you remind me, what are kings and queens? What did we learn that kings and queens are? That's right, friends. Kings and queens are leaders who come from royal families. We learned that there are still kings and queens today, but there are a lot less kings and queens than there used to be from times long, long ago. Kings and queens are the most important and powerful people in their kingdoms, and the members of their royal families always get the best of everything. They get the best of everything just for being born into that royal family. Friends, as we go into today's read aloud, we are going to be learning more about kings and queens and the royal families. Friends, in today's read alouds, we are going to be reading a story called The Royal Family. During this read aloud, we will be learning about royal families, particularly about what life was like for children of royal families, who we call princes and princesses. After today's read aloud, students should be able to describe what life was like for a royal family, and you'll be able to demonstrate an understanding of the tier 2 word advantages. Make sure that you listen very carefully, Keybook Cubs, to hear about the reason this author, so the person who's writing the story, gives for why there were good and not so good things about being a child of a royal family. Let's get started. Most kings and queens wanted to make sure they had lots of children, and they made sure those children understood what it meant to be part of the royal family. Being a prince or princess had both advantages and disadvantages. Friends, advantages means that there are good things about being in the royal family. Disadvantages means that there are some not so good things about being in the royal family as well. This picture that we see in front of us shows King George of England, the Queen, and 4 of their sons. So these are the 4 sons, this is the Queen, and this is King George, Keeble Cubs. As you can see, children in the royal family got to wear fancy clothing. They lived with their parents in the palace, which gave them plenty of space to run and play. Fine furniture and other beautiful things always surrounded them. For many kings and queens, having children was not just a matter of wanting to raise a family. In fact, children were the key to the future prosperity and success of the kingdom. Children were important to the wealth and good fortune of the kingdom. But why were children so important? Once a person became king, he usually remained king for the rest of his life. This period of time during which he ruled was called a king's reign. The same is true for a queen who sits on the throne. What's a king or queen's reign? It's the kind of reign we're talking about when once a person became king, he usually remained king for the rest of his life. The period of time which he ruled was called a king's reign. The same is true for a queen who sits on the throne. What's a king or queen's reign? Is this the same kind of reign we were talking about when we saying it's raining outside, Keeble Cubs? That's right, it's not. And when the king died, his reign ended, so when he ruled. And one of the children from the royal family became the new ruler. When you inherit something, it means that someone else, usually a relative, gives you something that once belonged to them. Often, when a person dies, their property, The things they own, including the belongings and money, are passed on to the family members who then inherit these things. This is what happened in kingdoms when the ruling king or queen died. Their power, the right to sit on the throne and wear the crown, was passed on to someone else in the family. Royal families always wanted children so that the power that and rule that they had of the kingdom stayed in their family. If there were no children, sometimes the power to rule the kingdom went to a different family altogether. Someone who inherits something is called an heir. In a kingdom, princes and princesses were the heirs to the throne because they were to inherit the throne. The oldest son, the one most likely to be the heir to the throne, is called the crown prince. When we are talking about the crown prince as the heir to the throne, are we talking about someone who becomes a king, or are we talking about the air we breathe? That's right, it's a different heir. We're talking about somebody who becomes the king. Good jobs. He is called the crown prince because he's the next person to wear the king's crown and rule the kingdom. If there is no son, the oldest daughter is called the crown princess because she will be the next person to wear the crown and rule the kingdom herself. Remember that the crown is a symbol of power and that whoever wears it is in charge. Friends, this photograph shows King George of England, the Queen, and 4 of their sons. The oldest of the sons is the crown prince because he will be next king. The adults treat him with the greatest respect, even though he is only a teenager. People hold doors for him and bow to him because he has the important status of being the next king. He has grown up having people serve him and tell him that he is very important. Friends, what did we learn the next king is called? That's right, it's called the crown prince, who is the heir to the throne. Good job. This is a picture of a palace in a country called Morocco. Inside this big, beautiful palace lives a crown prince named Moulay Hassan. He lives with his father, mother, and little sister. His father is the king of Morocco. Moulay was born in 2003 and is the oldest son of the king. Moulay will be the next king of Morocco because he's the oldest son and the crown prince of Morocco. The crown prince or princess is a very important member of the royal family, and he or she receives special education and extra special care in order to someday rule the kingdom. But what happens to the other princes and princesses? Those who are not the next heirs to the throne. Remember, friends, we learned that the heir to the throne is the son or daughter who will become the next king or queen. Kings or queens often arrange marriages for their children. This meant that princes and princesses usually did not get to choose whom they were going to marry. Their parents decided for them. This was because marriage was used as a way to form a partnership between 2 kingdoms, or a way for 2 kingdoms to rule together as a team. When princes or princesses married someone from another kingdom, as in this picture of a wedding between a princess from England and a prince from Germany, it was a very important event. All the most important people from those 2 kingdoms were invited because it meant that those 2 kingdoms were going to be friends in the future. There are definitely advantages to being a member of the royal family, especially for those who liked living in palaces and wearing nice clothes. But being a prince or princess wasn't always fun and games. Some disadvantages include that they didn't always get to do whatever they wanted, especially when it came to whom they would marry. Often, anything they did was watched and commented on by others. Everything they did reflected on the kingdom and the royal family, and they had to be careful to behave in a royal manner at all times. The end. Cable Cubs, in a royal family, who is the mom called? That's right, she's called the queen. And who's the daughter in the royal family? That's right, this is the princess. And what about the son in a royal family? We call the son of a royal family a prince. And finally, what is the dad in a royal family called, Cubs? That's right, friends, this is the king. Friends, what is a crown prince or an heir to the throne? What did we learn about in the read aloud? Who is this person? That's right, Keeble Cubs, good job. A crown prince or an heir to the throne is the next king or queen to rule the kingdom. And friends, why was it important for a king or queen to have a child? Why did we learn it was important for them to have kids? That's right, good job. It was very important for a king or queen to have a child so that the child could become the next king or queen and the power to rule the kingdom would stay in the same family. Good job. Friends, sometimes kingdoms formed partnerships by making a connection or becoming friends with another kingdom. How are partnerships made between kingdoms? How do we learn these partnerships were made in the read aloud? Good job, friends. We learned that kings and queens arranged marriages between their children and children of other kings and queens of other countries. Then the two kingdoms would form a partnership or a team. Good job. Friends, what reason does the author give to support the point that there are advantages to being in a royal family? What did we learn is an advantage of being in a royal family? Some of these could be that living in a royal family includes being in a beautiful large palace. They're heirs to the throne, so they're the next one to take charge. They have beautiful jewels and amazing food. There are many advantages we learned about. And friends, what about disadvantages? What disadvantages did we learn the author gave to support in the read aloud? Disadvantages of being in the royal family. That's right, Cubs, good job. Some of these disadvantages might include that they have to behave a certain way. So unlike normal kids, they really have to act in a specific royal manner because every action and behavior they do are strictly watched by other people to make sure that they're well representing their kingdom. Good job, Cable Cubs. Friends, in the read aloud you heard, being a prince or princess had both advantages and disadvantages. Say the word advantages with me. Advantages. Good job. Advantages, friends, are things that are good about a situation, or benefits, we can call them. Some advantages to being an older brother or sister may be doing things that the younger brother or sister cannot do yet, like staying up late sometimes. Friends, can you tell me about other things that you know of that might be advantages about being the oldest brother or sister in a family? When you tell me about the advantages of being an older brother or sister, try telling me by using the word advantages. Pause the video and tell me about these by saying and responding, I think some advantages to being the oldest child in a family are, and tell me what these advantages are. Now pause the video, Keeble Cubs. Good job. Friends, what's the word we've been talking about? That's right, Keeble Cubs. We've been talking about the word advantages. Friends, does the word advantages mean one thing or more than one thing? What do you think? Advantages. It means more than one thing. That's right, Keeble Cubs. And how do we know that? We know this because there's a s at the end of the word. And we've learned that when another name for this, when there's a s at the end of the word, we know that this means there's more than one, or another name of this is a plural. So advantages is plural to the word advantage, which means one advantage, but advantages means more than one or plural. Good job, friends. The opposite of the word advantages is the word disadvantages. There are two parts to the word disadvantages: dis and advantages. We already know that the word advantages means things that are good about a situation. The beginning of the word disadvantage is the prefix dis, which means not or the opposite of. When we put the prefix dis together with the word advantages, we have the word disadvantages. So friends, what does the word disadvantages mean? When we know that it's the opposite of advantages? That's right. We know because it's the opposite of advantages that disadvantages means things that are not good about a situation. Good job, friends. Keeble Cubs, for this next activity, I'm going to name a few things that may be advantages or good things about being in kindergarten, and some things that may be disadvantages or things that are not so good about it. If what I say is a good thing, say advantage and tell me why. If what I say is a bad thing, say disadvantage and tell me why it's a disadvantage. Even though we're not together and I can't call on you to share why it's a disadvantage or an advantage, pause the video after I ask if it's an advantage or disadvantage and tell me why you think it may be an advantage or a disadvantage. Let's get started. So, Keeble Cubs, is being the youngest in the school an advantage or a disadvantage? How about being the oldest in the class? How about learning how to read? What about riding the school bus? Friends, here are some other words that start with dis. Listen to the rest of the word to figure out what the whole word means. Disagree. What do you think? The word agree, friends, means to have the same opinion as someone else. So what did disagree mean? That's right, friends. Disagree means to have the opposite or a different opinion or idea than someone. Good job. Disappear. The word appear, Keeble Cubs, means to become seen or visible. So what does disappear mean? That's right, Keeble Cubs. To suddenly be invisible or not to be seen is what disappear means. Good jobs. Friends, in today's read aloud, we heard the period of time during which a king ruled was called a king's reign. Say the word reign with me. Friends, this meaning of the word reign means the period of time during which a king or queen rules a kingdom. An example of this would be when the king died, his reign ended, and one of the children from the royal family became their new ruler. Friends, we also know that reign can be used to describe the action of ruling over a kingdom, as in, the French king reigns or rules over the kingdom of France. Friends, can you tell me who reigns over your family? That's right. It could be your mom, your dad, grandmother, another family member, or guardian. Who makes the rules in your families, Keeble Cubs? Pause the video and tell me about it. Good job, friends. Friends, can you tell me the word that we've been talking about? That's right, we've been talking about the word rain. Good job. That's all the time we have for today, Keeple Cubs. Keep up the fantastic work. Great job.